with early voting, which of course is continuing, just 2 days to go. And today it was Jacinta Nampijinpa Price's role to vote early. She will be in Queensland on Saturday. She, of course, believes not just in the cause that she has argued the entire time, even when it wasn't known what her party's position would be, and she was from outside the parliament to inside the parliament to into the shadow ministry. She has been a fearless advocate for what she believes. She, along with her great husband, voted today, and this is what she had to say at her polling place in Alice Springs.
I don't believe we should be divided along the lines of race in our country. We have seen around the world the destruction of division and what that means in other nations. We shouldn't be constitutionally enshrining that within our democratic country of Australia. There are other absolute ways to move forward to improve the lives of our most marginalised. The other angles that we haven't taken yet, that this proposal does not provide whatsoever. In fact, this proposal provides nothing. There is no detail. There's never been any detail on.
Now, as you know, this show has been, yes, showing you the debate, having the conversation, asking the questions, but also it's been trying to show you the data so that no one wakes up surprised about one of two options being the result on Saturday night and as we start to digest it on Sunday. Of course, we'll be here Sunday night, normal show. If you don't normally check out the Sunday show, please be here this Sunday night at 9 o'clock. There'll be plenty to talk about and we'll get into deep detail. But about 6 million people voted early in the 2022 election. It looks like more than 5 million will end up voting by the close of polls tomorrow before the reopening of all the polls on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. Now, 4.65 million people have voted thus far. That is the latest number towards Thursday. Obviously, tomorrow, one last surge. New South Wales, almost 1.5 million, 1.2 million in Victoria. Just under 1 million people in Queensland. In Western Australia, almost 500,000 people. A bit over 250,000 people in South Australia, about 100,000 in the ACT. Almost 70,000 in Tasmania and 43,000 people in the Northern Territory. Now, the proportion of people voting early in the Northern Territory is through the roof because, remember, the entire population is less than that of the ACT. Now, there is some shifting data as well that's worth talking about, even this close to the day when most likely, if you're watching programs like this, you've already made up your mind. There's been one talking point you have heard over and over and over again. It came from a poll of about 300 Indigenous people.
Over 80% of Indigenous Australians will be voting yes. First Australians, more than 80%, are asking for this.
Listen to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who overwhelmingly, more than 80%, support this modest proposal.
We keep hearing this figure that more than 80% of Indigenous Australians are voting for the voice. That's what the Prime Minister says. That's what the official Yes campaign pamphlet says that we all got in our letterboxes.
But as always, it was a poll that was based off just about a few hundred people. Well, latest poll shows that about 20% of the supposed 80% has gone missing, now moving all the way to the No campaign, as the Sydney Morning Herald has reported today, when hopefully they hope that you're looking at a lot of other things other than what their coverage is on this. And what a surprise they waited until a couple of days before all the TV ads and all the rest of it. 59% of Indigenous people now apparently are in favour of the voice, about 20% moving their way towards no, which would be a minority, but of those people, but of course the wider population. It looks like the polls are at this stage headed towards maybe just one state voting yes. Now remember, for a quick guide for Saturday night, two things need to happen for yes to take place. More than 50% of people across the entire country, that's one number. And then there also needs to be a majority of states. That's 4 states. So obviously, in the counting, very quickly we'll find out what's happening in Tasmania, because unlike a normal election where there's multiple candidates and preferences, it literally is yes, no, and they're able to get through ballots a lot faster. Tasmania, being the smaller population, has the same cut-off time of 6 p.m, meaning it'll start reporting some pretty solid numbers by 7 p.m, Australian Eastern Daylight Time. By that point in time, also, you will have seen the polls close for an hour in New South Wales and in Victoria. 1 hour later, of course, will be in Queensland. Half an hour after the Eastern Daylight Time is when there's a closing of the polls that, of course, takes place in South Australia, then a little later in the Northern Territory, and then last of all, of course, according to the clock, and that's all. The only reason I say last of all, don't send your complaint letters, of course, is Western Australia. So the yes case needs 4. Now, best case scenario, or most likely path for them to get to 4, is that the polls are wrong in New South Wales and Victoria, and the slight advantage of no becomes the slight advantage of yes. Tasmania is there, and then it's up for grabs what South Australia does. Now, again, most polling, if not all polling, has shown that things are tight in South Australia, but most likely it looks no at this stage. If just 3 states vote no, so let's imagine New South Wales, Tasmania, Victoria, well, Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia, it's over. If even 4 states get up, but they don't get more than half of the population, it fails as well. There needs to be 2 thresholds that need to be passed. Again, from 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time is when the coverage will be here on Sky News. I will be part of the coverage, along with Laura Jays at the top of each hour, going through the different numbers as well as the overall panel that is having its debate.